Hello, welcome everyone to our October customer office hours. For today's topic, we're going to be walking through all things reporting and really zoning in on a few of the most commonly used and highest impact reports that we offer in Fullcast. So really quick introduction here. I'm Ashley Kim. I do customer education trainings and all of the things in our CX team, and also here joined by Tyler.
Hello, everybody. Familiar face. Um, Director of our product of the plan, which would be the territories, quota, routing, and kind of the reporting stuff that we're going to be looking at today. And I've been with the company for 8+ years and was on the CX side for about 6, 7 of those. So, yeah.
Thank you. So quick housekeeping here. You want to go to the next slide, Tyler?
Maybe we'll see how to do that.
So our agenda today is pretty straightforward. So we are going to start with a very brief slide just showing the report types that we're going to cover and a line describing what the intent of each of those is. Tyler's then going to take us through a demo of some example reports and walk us through the configuration of those specific reports. And then we'll wrap up with another slide on some dashboarding tips, as well as a couple other quick tips for actually getting started with building reports and so forth. So that's the straightforward agenda here. For the format, it's going to be primarily demo again with Tyler and I kind of talking through things. If you have questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A at any point in time. I'll definitely keep an eye on that. And feel free to ask anything that comes to mind. And tomorrow we will get the recording of this session out to everyone, which will also include links to specific documentation that you can reference as you go to start building these reports in your own Fullcast instance. So that is it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Be sure to ask questions. That's the big one. All right, so the key report types we will cover today will be the basic report type. And don't worry, if you don't know what any of these are, we will show them to you in the UIs, but we're just kind of level setting on what we're going to take a look at. So we're going to look at the basic report type, the GTM report type, coverage, disruption, and the portfolio report, and really the differences between those. So just a quick summary of those. Basic really is kind of, I always call it very similar to a Salesforce report where you have all of the objects that you've kind of imported into Fullcast, and you can build reports like territory composition, and we'll look at some examples there. GTM really focused on what are the balance of my territories. And you'll see a lot of the metrics that you build in Fullcast are there available for you. You can layer in the assignments and things like that. Coverage, purely about who is assigned to what territory and when, start and dates, those things. Disruption. Most of you know by now there's these proposed changes that exist in Fullcast, so proposed versus committed view. And we have this modeling component with the proposed states that allow you to take, okay, here's my current plan, let me make changes. And well, the question of what is my impact based on these proposed changes? What is the impact to the reps or to a territory? That is what this disruption report does. And the final one is the portfolio report, is just like the account report in Salesforce. So determining what accounts are in each rep's book and getting that kind of line item, and you can export that out into a spreadsheet and send it to the rep. So those are what we're going to look at today. So let's get into Fullcast. And so I will typically build from the module that I'm in or want to be in. So if that's territories, I'll be in territories, teams, products. If you are going to want to, save the report, you will need to have a dashboard that already exists that you can kind of pin it to. And in the main reports tab up here in the module, We have our folders that we've created. If you need to create a new folder, you can do that up here and just add that. Or if you want to create a new dashboard as well. We've got a couple of dashboards that exist. So the one that we'll kind of go through here today will be the examples with Tyler. I'm not going to click into here because it's a surprise. And we'll actually go build out some reports and then we'll come back to this in a bit. All right.
Getting everybody to stay to the end to come see the surprise in the dashboard.
I don't know what the surprise is. I haven't got to come up with a good one. And I got
We'll see
30
if it
minutes.
works.
Oh man. All right. So building a report from the territory module, you just come up to the actions, create a chart. And here are those report types. There are a bunch of other ones in here. We're not going to talk about them today. So we're going to talk about the 5 that we highlighted already. And so the first one that we always drop you into is the basic chart. The basic chart, again, is just displaying all of the different entities, or really we call it entities. In Salesforce, they call them objects. In database world, they'll call them tables. So all the same thing, right? And we just display all of those here in the left-hand side for you to access that relevant information that we're kind of importing into Fullcast. And if I open up, let's do the accounts, why not? You'll see 2 kind of breakouts, dimensions and measures. Dimensions for us are everything that's kind of like a text-based field, a date field, and the measures are things that like numerical values that you can kind of sum up. That can also be like a currency. And the rule of thumb, of course, is that dimensions go into the dimension box here, and then measures go into the measure box. There's one exception to that, in which we'll talk about when we build this report, and you'll have to wait 2 minutes to know about that. See? Anyway, all right. Uh, so let's in the chart side here, where I usually start is like, okay, well, what is it that I want to build? And a lot of times what I do with the basic chart is wanting to see stuff. Maybe I haven't created a metric for it yet, and I want to just quickly build a report to take a look at it. A lot of places where I might start would be like, what does it look like from a territory composition, like a balance of maybe industries or customer types or things like that across a set of territories. And so if I go into kind of this namer, um, we'll do mid-market here. And the first thing I want to do is drag out our territory current node. So this current node is where is the account currently located? And in fact, I want to just really, since this is office hours and we're getting kind of into the weeds on things, I want to explain a little bit about what current node is, right? Uh, so current node is a field that exists in this grid, and we'll just kind of drag that out. And so this here is exactly where these accounts are located. So if we were to go to SMB6, we would see whatever account this is and where it's located. We can see if there's an account name, and we'll drag that out onto the grid here. Maybe we'll get rid of the notes. So now we can see, okay, well, the law offices of Anthony B. Ferraro, SMB_6. And so this current node is where everything's located. And if we come back to our report, that's exactly what we can drag out into the dimension. Now, the exception to this, right? So you have 2 options. Maybe you just want to count the accounts, right? Count the number of accounts that are by industry, or just count the number of accounts. You can, 1, use your territory measures, which are all the metrics that you've already built. So if you've built metrics in the platform and you want to see them, you can drag those out. We have tier A accounts. We can plot that pretty quickly and see, okay, here are the balance of my tier A accounts across my mid-market territories. And you can open that up with or you can see a table view with this little spreadsheet icon down here and kind of see the differences there. There's also some toggles here, like if you wanted to see it like in a bulleted view and a percentage, we can do that. Now, the other option, which is that exception that I was talking about, is dragging the identification number or the account ID to the measures box. And so if you think about this being in dimensions, well, Tyler, you told me dimensions go to dimensions and measures go to measures. This is the exception here when I want to actually count the measures. And so what we're doing is just counting the number of essentially unique account IDs, and we're counting them up. And so if I go ahead and just plot that, we'll get a similar view, except for this, apparently. From the standpoint of, oh, I was looking at tier A's, that's why. So we had tier A's before, and this is just total number of accounts. So we've got the total number of accounts, which is kind of the same thing as that metric. All right. So I want to take this a step further, right? This isn't just about counting the number of accounts, because honestly, I would probably do that in a GTM chart. That's where I would see balance. I've built the metrics, and we'll kind of talk about the differences there in a bit. But like, what I usually want to do here is see a more of like a composition breakdown. And so a very common example of this might be, well, I want to know, for example, my industry. I want to see what the industry breakout looks like. And so what I've done is actually have the current node as my kind of first item here, and then the industry as the second. And what this does is start to set up a stacked report structure. Now, if I try to plot this, it's going to say, hey, you can't do that. You've got to change this limit to 25. And you've got to change it to stack or tree map. Those are two different chart types that are allowed. And we have this little upside down triangle that exists. And if we kind of open this up, we can scroll down here and we can see the type. And so I'll just change this to stack, and we'll go look at the tree map and see what that looks like too. Did I actually click it? I did. Cool.
Can you specify too, Tyler? The limit is a limit of items that display in the x-axis.
Yeah, it's really like in this case, it's if you had like 700 industries, we would limit it down to 25.
Okay.
And a lot of this has to do with data volume and why you see that limited. And so it's really important to kind of think about that structure as that goes.
So if you're choosing something to show in the stack, you have a limit of 25 different values that you could have in the stack.
I mean, if I were look at this is really messy already, right?
Right.
It's really hard to tell what's what as we look at this. And so if you imagine you had 100 or 200 industries,
Right.
but there's not much you're going to be able to determine from that. The table does give us a better view here. And so that's kind of a nice thing. And if you wanted to flip this on its end where you said, okay, I want to see the industries down in this side of the table and uh, the territories on the top, then you would flip those tiles when we edit the chart. So, but here we can see the breakouts of this. The tree map is also another way to do this. So we just do this and change that over so you can see what that looks like. And this actually gives a nice little area per, number of accounts. The larger, the more number of accounts there are, the larger the area is. And we have all of the actual text displayed. So that's actually a helpful way to see the breakouts. And then you can kind of compare that across the different territories. So this is the basic chart. If you have things that you're like, maybe you want to look at it by pipeline breakout or things like that, you can certainly bring in opportunity data, build your own reports, add filters in, timeline could be added. So another way to maybe think about this would be instead of adding up the identification number, we want to add up the amount field. So we'll go ahead and drag the amount field out. I also want to just maybe limit that to a close date. You're not going to pick the date just yet. You'll just have this available when we plot the chart and you'll see this. I'm going to still maintain this industry. I'll change this over to tree map. Why not? And then we'll go ahead and plot that.
And just
so,
to say it another way, Tyler, I think you're going there now. When you put the timeline, that's what it gives you this little thing that you're showing, right?
Correct. Yep. So up here is where your timeline is, and certainly you can pick all kinds of different things like your fiscal year, trailing 30 days, to date, custom timeframes, etc., all available. And then that would show you the data of, okay, well, what are my open opportunities or closed opportunities? In this case, I didn't filter by open, is one, is closed, any of those. So this is just showing amount by close date filtered down to FY26. So open, closed, lost, closed, won are all included in this report that we built. If you wanted to, again, further break that down, then certainly just bringing in maybe is one equals true. And for us, true, false is 1, 0. So true is a 1, false is a 0. And so filtering that further would be, here's all the closed won data. In the
I think the
demo
industry
environment,
is field. Yeah,
is probably not
industry.
here.
I
What's
think
up?
the industry is part of it because you still have industry in the top, and I think
Yep.
industry is not filled on a lot of those.
Yeah. And so we could maybe, get rid of that
Maybe.
and even change this back to the bar chart. So demo org, we have closed 84K. Not doing too well. All right. So anyway, that's kind of the basic chart. There's a lot of flexibility and a lot of power in here. This is kind of what I would say like the advanced chart builder for us, whereas the GTM chart is a little bit more straightforward, and you get an additional bonus of bringing in your targets and your assignments. So when we think about the basic chart, as soon as you say, well, I want to know, when we were plotting, and we'll go back to the original one that we had so we have actual data. What did I do? It was tier A. So when I plot this, a lot of times you're like, well, I don't want to see mid-market here. I want to actually see the rep assigned to the territory. And we could do that. You can kind of see it from this side. So for those of you who don't know, you can shoulder roll details over here and just change this over to an account executive. On the left-hand side, we'll show it. In this case, we don't have anybody assigned to mid-market, so it's showing TBDs. But if you actually wanted to see this into a report, then we can change that over. And that is where you're going to be going, okay, well, I want to go into the GTM chart and I want to build that now. The first place we start would be just doing it by territory name and the tier A. This report right here is exactly the same thing as the basic chart that we just built. Territory name in the GTM and current node in the basic are the exact same thing. There's a little bit of a difference, I guess, and we can back out and maybe talk about that, and then we'll go into the assignments. Because I'm at the mid-market level, we're seeing the exact same report. Now, when I traverse the hierarchy, so let's go up to Namer, we're now going to get a refresh of show me the next level, right? Which is show me the balance of tier A accounts across financial services, mid-market, SMB. In the basic chart, you're looking at the current node. And so what you would see at this level would be the balance of all of the kind of leaf node territories, SMB 6, SMB 7, mid-market 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can change that too. You could also say, show me all child levels, in which case now we're seeing a very similar layout as what we would see in the basic chart. All right, but I do want to go into the assignment piece. So let's take the dimension and let's go ahead and add in the employee name. So rather than seeing the territory, I want to see, okay, who's been essentially assigned out as the employee. And so we can go ahead and plot this. We might not even really see this because of how the territories are built.
In SMB, I have assignments.
Oh, there was data there, and I spoke too fast. You have assignments in SMB?
Yes.
There we go. Cool. So now we're seeing these assignments by the employee name. These are the people that are assigned. to the relevant territories. There's multiple assignments here, which is probably why we're seeing a bunch of these things that exist. So if you have like multiple AEs assigned to the nodes, then you'll see multiple people here. Additionally, you'll probably also pull people in from an inherited, and so the other thing to just you'll want to do is potentially filter those things out. But in this case, we have employee name and tier A accounts. You can add up to, I guess, multiple metrics if you want to see like also ARR, ultimate parents, those things. You can change the order of those as well, based on the measures. And the final thing here is if you are using targets, and whether that's territories, teams, or products, you can bring in your target values and you can see them here against the employee. So if you have like this AE quota bookings and wanting to plot this, and if there were targets at this level, you would see that here as well, and kind of see that broken out. So let's talk briefly about the GTM chart versus the balancer. So
My favorite topic.
they are, surprise, surprise, they are the same. They're exactly the same thing. And the only difference for us, and I'll close that out at this point, is that the balancer is permanent. It's sticky. It stays here. If I log out of Fullcast and come back in to Fullcast, I will see the same report here until I change it. If I come in here and I tweak things around and then I hit plot, it's going to change it and it's going to be saved that way forever. And the intention of this is to be like, oh, I'm planning my territories. I want to quickly reference a report. Now, when it comes to the GTM chart here, if I log out, move around, you will lose this configuration unless you pin it to a dashboard. In which case, that's where we were kind of talking about setting up those dashboards. You can pin the chart, which would be this thing up here, or you can pin the table. And we should actually just, use a metric that has some data so it looks good. And we'll do this plot. And so now I'm going to pin this to our dashboard that we were building out here. Examples with Tyler. Confirm. And so this will go ahead and pin this chart to that dashboard, which we'll look at in a bit. So that is it. That's the difference between balancer and a GTM chart. For me, I use both, right? I use, okay, in the main plan, when I'm actually carving up territories in the balancer, I use kind of my 4 or 5 key metrics that I care about. I put them here, and then I build out my own GTM charts and I pin those to the dashboards. That is going to be more comprehensive look at what the balance or the composition of a territory can be, especially because I can mix and create different charts and things like that.
I think the other question that often comes up with respect to the balancer is who can see my balancer? And it's kind of like, this is mine. You can't share it with someone. I think that's one of the things that helps people kind of understand how they might want to use the balancer versus other reports that they share and pin to dashboards and whatnot.
Correct. Yeah, there is it is your report and your report only. We have a saved views functionality. The balancer chart does not get saved to the saved views. So it is just yours. For those looking to enable sales leaders, other team members, it's good to show them, okay, here's how you would build this out and, save a balancer chart. For those that are just wanting to send reports to other people for them to reference, then building the GTM chart here and then pinning that to a dashboard and sharing the dashboard out will be key. All right. Coverage report. Again, this is all about, who is assigned to what territory. You have a different set of entities or objects available to us. For me, what I'm always pulling in is probably the territory name to start. So we want to know, what is the territory name? I will want to know the person. So in this case, I will usually go to the people table to pull this. because this is the person's name. We'll drag that out. And then I want to say, okay, well, what is their role that they are assigned? I will filter out all of the inheritance.
In case, can you explain the inheritance piece?
Yeah. This is why you're responsible for training. All right. So let's go into, I'm just gonna get rid of this real quick for a clean view, and then we'll go into coverage. So in this case, we have a couple people that are, assigned to this APAC 1 node. If there was somebody assigned at APAC, we would see the same card here, but it would show it'd say inherited. And we can kind of maybe see if there's some of these here. So like Eli here, we see this little blue tag inherited. And the challenge with when you build a coverage report and you see Eli here, you will see Eli multiple times in that coverage report because Eli is assigned to EMEA 2, EMEA 1, EMEA, so on and so forth. And what I like to do is I don't want to see all that noise. So I typically say I just want to see where Eli is mainly assigned, which would be EMEA. I don't care to see him at that EMEA 1, EMEA 2 level. And so I'm filtering out all of the inherited assignments. I'm only seeing the exact direct relationship between territory and assignment.
Only
And
the place where it was like created, not where it's trickled down. No assignments that have trickled, only where they've been created. Right.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So role, start date, end date. If you want to, set yeah, I think that's kind of where I would start here and then plot that. And so now I'm at the we can kind of refresh this and see. We want to do all child levels there. So all child levels will show us all of the assignments, their territories, their people, their roles, start date, end dates. You can filter on all of this stuff, picking, okay, show me who's active, who's not active, the different roles that exist. And then you can also just export this out into a CSV or a spreadsheet. And so, you know what? We'll pin this one as well to our dashboard. I'm ruining the dashboard right now because there's preset examples. And so anyway, there we go. And so the next one, which is the portfolio report. In this one, I've talked about it's like an account object report. You have a very limited set of objects available. And I typically would go, okay, start with the account name. You have to have some sort of an account dimension on here because it is an account first report. For those familiar with Salesforce reporting, you kind of have that main object and then you have the relationships that exist off of it. In this case, accounts is that kind of main object that we have. And we'll pull in, maybe we'll pull in the industry again. Why not? And we'll come in and grab the territory. So here it is, current node. And if we wanted to grab some assignments, we can. When you drag this out, it will ask you what role do you want to actually bring in. So we're not going to just display everything. That column is going to be dedicated to the sales rep that is assigned as like a normal person or a TBH, whatever it might be, in that role to that territory. There are limits here. The max that you can do is 10,000 accounts, and the default is 5,000. And most of these screens here have to do with assignments and filtering. I ignore them because I like to just display everything here. And then if I do any other filtering that I need to do, it would exist in this bottom section. You can also change the change state. So we talked about the proposed, current, and difference views. If you're wanting to pull in different or very specific level views, you can defaulted to proposed state. So when we plot this, we get kind of this account level report of everything that we have. If you have other account level metrics that you want to see, you would bring those into the grid. This is a great place for building a maybe you want to download this and get into a spreadsheet and share this with a prospective rep that's going to take over a TBH territory. and you're, trying to entice them into look how great your book of business will be when you come to us, or you're working through change management with the the sales reps, the CSMs, whoever you're building books for, and you want to just give them a view into what is it going to be next year for you. This is a great report to have and build out to show them what their book's going to look like. And then finally, we talked about the disruption report. This is a straight up comparison. And the most common thing I do see is show me the owner name. So I'm new to Fullcast. I have a bunch of owners, account owners in Salesforce. This owner name is what we import from Salesforce. So this is your account owner name in Salesforce. And then I want to compare that against who will own it in the future based on the plan that I have. So I will drag the employee name out, sales rep, make sure that it's for this fiscal year, not last fiscal year. And we'll just backdate this a little bit to make sure we get assignments in.
Maybe try AE, unless you created sales rep assignments.
No, I did not. There we go. Straight up going to compare these two. If it's different, if it's not, it's the same, you'll see. And we'll go ahead and drag in our favorite metric of all time, tier A accounts, maybe ARR as well. And then we'll plot that. Okay. All right. So we're seeing names on the left-hand side, and we're seeing current. So the current was, and we'll come back into this, the current column is what is your current number of tier A accounts based on the data that's in Salesforce? So we're going to plot this again. In the case that a tier A, Ashley owns 66 accounts in Salesforce that are tier A, and she has that much in ARR. Not going to try and say that number. I think it's in the trillions. So then the next thing is proposed. What will, if we were to go live with this plan and push it to Salesforce, how many tier A accounts will Ashley own, and how much ARR will she have or should be responsible for? And in this case, 0, and she'll have this much in ARR. And then the final column between these things are the difference, right? What is the difference? What's the impact to Ashley if we were to go live with this plan? And so this is a great way to view the impact of changes between a kind of a proposed and a difference state when you want to look at like ownership changes year over year.
There's a question here, and yeah, maybe when you open the config, it'll help. It says it has to be an active assignment to do the comparison, correct?
No, you can, if you change the dates to like last fiscal year, you could easily compare. So like a great example, and this is probably maybe where your head's at, is I want to compare last year's assignments, right? So we go into account executive again, and we just change this to 24. Let's say that was at the beginning. And then we kind of just change this one to 24, and that's at the end, and then confirm. What I'm comparing here is last year's assignments based on where the account is located and the proposed column based on where things are going. So this is a great way to kind of look at it as well.
There's another question here. Disruption reporting is something that we can save into a dashboard, or is this a user level report? I think maybe we're thinking about like the balancer, but
everything that we're looking at today can be pinned to a dashboard. So anything that you build in our reporting from the territories, the teams, etc., can then be pinned to a dashboard, which can then be shared out.
And one more question, can we compare territory changes or changes by segment?
If you're looking for more of the changes to a, let's see here, if you're looking more for like a changes to like an account, like a territory itself, so comparing in proposed view, there are 50 accounts in this territory. In current view, there are 40 accounts. Is that kind of the question, I think?
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
So if it's that case, really what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to, in this case, there's not the level of detail that you're really going to want here, because this is really comparing data that we see in the platform as it is, not necessarily against those like weird, it's kind of a confusing thing with like current versus proposed. So what I actually do is I come back into the GTM chart and we'll just drag the name up there and I will drag tier A accounts out, but I'm going to drag it out 3 times. And so what we didn't really talk about here, and this is a great call out, is that when I open up this menu, there are change states here. And so in this case, we'll go into current. This one will leave proposed, and then this one will change to difference. And you don't need to do all 3. You could do current versus proposed, or you could just say, show me the difference, the actual impact. And then when we plot that, we can go down into that SMB node. This would be our differences, right? And so it's actually even better when you have the table. So in this case, we've got SMB1. There's 2 accounts currently in here. We now have 37 in a proposed state. So if I committed all the accounts, then we would go with 37 pushed into Salesforce into SMB1. And here is the difference. So the way I really think about it is disruption is more focused on disruption to the rep, less so to the territory. So what are the changes or the impacts to a single person because you're comparing that assignment data? And then on the GTM side or the account side, what are the impacts to a territory? I'm going to use that GTM chart to kind of figure that out. It's a good question. Okay.
While you were in there showing current, proposed, and difference, I was thinking it might be a good chance to show a couple of the other toggles there in terms of the axes and colors and things, just in case.
Yeah, the colors you can customize to whatever color you want. Reference lines. If you wanted to add a reference line like the mean on here, you can do that. And when we plot it, you'll see a reference line that exists in the chart to kind of show you, okay, where's the mean? And we'll get rid of that. Change state we covered, bar type or types. We've kind of looked at some of these. You can all explore line and area. I think most everyone knows what those charts are, so we can do that. Ordering, so I want to order ascending or descending based on this metric. And then the final one is axes. And this doesn't really matter for tier A, but what happens when I have tier A and ARR in the same chart? And so if I plot this, it looks super weird. And the reason is the ARR is massive and the tier A accounts are not massive. And so that is where the axes comes in. And if you have these big discrepancies in values, then switching one of the metrics over to a secondary axis will help kind of give you that visual that you're looking for. And so now all of a sudden I can see my tier A's and my ARR in kind of this bar chart format. And the key is that if we look at the primary axes on the left, we see that this is our tier A accounts and the scale here. And then if we look all the way over here under the right, we see the scale for our ARR. And that's kind of just differing the scales so that we can actually visualize the balance for 2 metrics that have very, very different values. All right. Okay, so now let's go look at our trusty report, unless there's anything else.
No other questions at the moment, but do feel free to ask questions to our audience if you have them.
By our trusty dashboard.
Yes.
Okay, so we've pinned a bunch of things already to this dashboard. Everything that we added during this call today are going to be at the bottom. So we keep scrolling all the way down, we'll see some of the stuff that we messed with. So here's that coverage report that we added. And here's the GTM chart by tiering tier A accounts. We'll scroll back up. Okay, so a couple things with this. When I land at a report, I have access to the entire go-to-market hierarchy. So it will land at all companies. This filters based on where I select. So if I go back down into our SMB world, we'll see the dashboard refresh and reflect the next level, which is the SMB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7s. From there, if you are a sales leader or a sales manager that's logging in and you have access only to SMB, this will be at the top, and you will only see SMB in the 7 territories that you've been assigned to or that you've inherited. And we can go through some of these and look at some other examples if that's helpful, and then we can talk a little bit about some tips and tricks. What do you think, Ashley?
I'm looking at time. Yeah, maybe go through a couple other examples in case that's helpful, and then the dashboarding and tips makes sense.
Great. So in this case, we've got a report that we built or pre-built, which are just opportunity amount by stage. So they're stacked by their stage. So we're seeing our opportunity amount on the left-hand side, and then SMB or the territories. And if I hover over, we can see that split by the stage names to kind of give you a different view of this. This was built with the basic chart. So this is a basic chart report type with those stacks. If you needed to edit it, you can come up here in 3 dots and edit it. Classic tier A accounts, we've kind of covered that. Here's another style of a coverage report. Here we've added in the inheritance, the is active, are they active in Salesforce or not? So you bring in the relevant data that matters to you. All right. Here's another example of a disruption report. This one we pulled in bookings potential instead of ARR, but similar thing, you pull in the relevant fields that you care about there. A portfolio report that we've built out, we've pulled in some bookings potential numbers, accounts. This one's really, really big. And you know what? If I wanted to shorten this because of how big this is, in terms of tallness, I would just come up here and then under the 3 dots, I'd edit this layout. And now we kind of have this like view that you can just drag and drop stuff in here. And so we'll scroll back all the way down here. And I want to just adjust that a little bit because it was too tall for me. And then we'll save it. Cool. All right, so we've adjusted the layout of that. That looks much better. So portfolio report, we did talk about that one. We've also discussed our territories by industry. This is another basic chart with the stacks of the industries that exist. I've pre-built a report that I can download, right? So I can just download this here with the icon into a CSV and share that out with a rep and say, here's your book of business. Here's another portfolio report that we built. And then finally, I think we'll just kind of end with this one, which is a GTM chart with the different level metrics on there. So we've got bookings, number of accounts, and open pipeline added. And so we're just seeing the balance of those across the territories. Okay, tips and tricks, which we kind of did a lot of those already.
Yeah.
So I will just collapse that up there. So dashboarding, enable personalization. So, we all saw me edit the layout of the dashboard. You have the ability to either toggle on or toggle off the personalization. What does that mean? That means, do you want other people to be able to manage the layout of the dashboard for themselves? So what we kind of recommend here, and if we come up here and kind of go to the dashboard details, you'll see this allow personalization on. If it's a dashboard that's built out for managers, sales leaders, people that aren't spending a ton of time in the platform and just need the reports to look nice and kind of structured so they can read it and actually get to the details they need without messing around with the layout, then we would toggle this off. So it's kind of like whatever you set up here is what everybody else sees. It's kind of my default mode. If it's something that you're having other admins also look at and they are particular about how they structure their reports, then maybe leaving that on would be a good idea. I think default for me, like 95% of the time, is to turn it off, because I'm just gonna, build out these reports to be pretty wide and big and easy to read. And so that's kind of, I think most people don't want to have to deal with the layout. So I just turn it off and make it easy. Editing the layout, we actually already talked about that. So certainly 3 dots, coming in, editing the layout. We used to have a different layout control a couple months ago, and we've kind of switched over to a new way to do this. We do kind of blur it a little bit so you know that you're in layout mode, and you can easily adjust these things. And we can restack this stuff if we want. So maybe I want to just drag this around so I can structure this a little bit differently. You can see you have the crosshairs anywhere you're on a report to just drag it around. So it's really easy to like find out, okay, well, what do I want to do and how do I want that to look? Maybe that's it. So I can save that and be done. Record level filtering. This is new and is really part of the kind of commissions requirements. So Fullcast Pay being a new part of our platform, we wanted to get the ability to filter down to a specific person. We don't have any, I think we don't have any teams level dashboards, so you won't see people. But in this view, if I come up to this all accounts and I select it, I can filter down on any of the accounts that are in SMB. So by doing this, it gives me a record level filter. If there is no data available or we can't do it because of there's no join with the account, then you will see stuff like this. In this case, it's likely that there's no data available for the report, so you can't really filter on it. Again, I think this is more powerful for the commissions use cases and wanting to see, okay, what are my commission payouts for a specific rep? And so being able to filter on that rep is really important. And that's really what that's there for. But we extended it to the territory or the segment module so that you can filter down on your accounts. And then sharing, great. Sharing's the last one. So sharing can happen either here with this dashboard. So I'm in the dashboard. I just select this. There's a link and we can just paste that in. And that will bring me into the dashboard. And so this link can be shared out, and if you have access to it, it'll bring you in. You'll also notice that it dropped me directly into SMB. So the location of where you share the dashboard is also saved. So if you wanted to share it from Namer or all companies, make sure you're at the right level when you share it, because we do save that into the shareable link. If you share it from all companies, but I am a manager that only has access to SMB, when I click the link and I get brought into this report, it will just show SMB. There's no, you get to see more just because of where you shared it. The other place that you can find the share link as well is just right here with this quick action here. So if I wanted to share this out from just this view rather than the actual dashboard and it defaults to all companies, then we've got that link here for us. Okay, so tips here using the balancer and the talent territory plan. We talked a little bit about that. I always set up the balancer. It stays sticky. It's there. It's the quick hit. And then when I need more detailed reporting, then I certainly have my dashboards that I reference. A lot of times if I'm like really doing some analysis and I want to have a lot of reports available to me, I will usually run multiple tabs. So you'll have, your territory plan here with your like grid level view, moving accounts around, whatever you might be doing, and then coming into the dashboard. And then if I was actually in this dashboard here, I'd just come in and I'd refresh it, right? And so after every move, I'd come into the next tab and just refresh that to see the updated metrics based on those changes, and I can see the new stuff. And then finally, designing and refining reports quickly. I personally prefer to create reports in the actual module where I'm at. So that means create the report in the territory module, create the report in teams or products. You can add a chart here to the dashboard. The challenge here is like the way we have it designed today is that to preview the report that you built, you have to plot it. And more often than not, I'm never happy with the initial report that I build. I usually want to add a filter, or I want to change a color, or maybe the report type, or whatever it is, right? And so what I like to do, and it works better for me, is to do that in the territory module because I can come in here, I can add it, plot, see it, and then make changes. Whereas the workflow from the dashboard, when you plot this report from the dashboard, it saves it to the dashboard. And so it saves it at the bottom, and you got to go down to the bottom and kind of go into that. It's great if you know exactly what you want to build and you just want to add it quickly, then do it, right? You're in the dashboard, you know it, go for it. For me, I'm kind of like the eternal want to tweak and optimize the report until I feel like it's perfect. And so I will always start in territories or teams depending on what kind of reporting I want to build. So that's it that I've got today. Anything I
One
missed?
more thing that I forgot. We didn't show how to pin metrics to dashboards, which I think is a nice thing
Oh,
to have on a dashboard. I
yeah,
completely forgot to right now.
so tier A, if I want, I can just pin this to the dashboard, right? And so we go into the examples with Tyler training. I did that really fast, so I'll do that one more time. Um, so you have the metrics at the top of the grid. I can select that three dots and pin, and it will pin it to the dashboard.
I
And if
think
we
of it
go,
as a widget, right? Like this is just like one little widget instead of a report or a chart on the dashboard.
yeah, so we'll refresh this, and it probably added it at the bottom. At least we hope. There it is. So I can edit the layout and bring it all the way up to the top or in the middle or wherever you want to put it. But that's a nice way to just like kind of quickly get kind of this metric or widget view as well, something less complicated. What is my pipeline coverage for each of the reports or for APAC? What's the pipeline velocity? So if you've got all these different metrics you have, and you're wanting to just quickly see like an aggregate for each of the regions or segments, then this is a great way to do it. It's a good call out. Thanks, Ashley.
Great.
Good
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler.
question. Is there
I'm
any
looking for
questions?
more questions. I don't see any more questions at the moment. So maybe what we do, yeah, we can kind of talk about things I've already talked about. We'll send out the recording tomorrow, and then I'll have links to the documentation, which also have examples of each type that we discussed today. And we may as well talk about our upcoming office hours. So next month, we'll be talking about holdouts, and those are the policies that you can use to define rules and kind of manage the transition of opportunities during your time when you're moving accounts. Right, Tyler, anything else you want to say about that?
There's a lot I want to say about this. We have spent 6 months basically adding a bunch of scenarios to holdouts. So things like doing a selection period for reps to keep specific open opportunities, um, providing a global limit on the number of open opportunities a rep can keep, um, managing your opportunity splits from holdouts. So there's a bunch of stuff that's coming out in this release coming up here in the next couple weeks that we're going to go into detail on the holdouts. And I think it's going to be really special because we've had holdouts for a long time. It's been there. There's just been some of those missing use cases, and we've spent a lot of time with this. And I'm very excited for this thing to come out and finally see how well it, how everybody gets to use it and go from there. So hope to see you all there. And then I think you want to talk about open office hours.
Yes. So the idea, given that everybody's pretty deep in the trenches during December and January, is we're thinking about holding open office hours where we have experts from our team just kind of here and available to make it like a drop-in session. I'm curious how attractive that idea is. So I made a little poll. So before you log off from the session today, let us know your thoughts and feelings on would you come to an open office hour? If there are more thoughts that you have on that, please feel free to reach out directly. I'm happy to get feedback and other thoughts about what kind of sessions are helpful during those busiest times of the year. That's pretty much it for us today. We'll hang out for a second and see if anybody has further questions, but if not, we will follow up via email tomorrow and see you on the next one.
Thank you. And we'll just stand in silence, sit in
Yeah,
silence.
stand in silence in case there's questions. I don't see any just yet. Okay.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. See you next time.
See ya.